I'm Jeremy. Today's day 343 of reading. Today's the first day of reading Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Actually, it's day 343, but it is the first day of reading this book. It is book 5. Let's go. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling, of course. Also the summary. There is a door at the end of a silent corridor, and it's haunting Harry Potter's dreams. Why else would he be walking in the middle of the night, screaming in terror? Oh, by the way, this is like a quick summary at the front of the book. Here are just a few things on Harry's mind. Defense against a dark arts teacher with a personality like poisoned honey. A venomous, disgruntled house elf. Ron as the keeper of the Gryffindor Quidditch team. The looming terror of the end-of-term ordinary wizarding level exams. And, of course, the growing threat of He Who Must Not Be Named in the richest installment yet of J.K. Rowling's 7-part... oh well, we shall skip that. Chapter 1. Dudley Demented. The hottest day of summer so far was drawing to a close, and drowsy silence lay over the large square houses of Privet Drive. Cars that were usually gleaming stood dusty in their drives, and lawns that were once emerald green lay parched and yellowing. The use of hosepipes had been banned due to drought. Deprived of their usual car washing and lawn mowing pursuits, the inhabitants of Privet Drive had retreated into the shade of their cool houses, windows thrown wide in the hopes of tempting in a non-existent breeze. The only person left outdoor was a teenage boy who was lying flat on his back in a flower bed outside number 4. He was a skinny, black-haired, bespectacled boy who had the pinched, slightly unhealthy look of someone who had grown a lot in a short space of time. His jeans were torn and dirty, his t-shirt baggy and faded, and the soles of his trainers were peeling away from the uppers. Harry Potter's appearance did not endear him to the neighbors, who were the sort of people who thought scruffiness ought to be punishable by law. But as he had hid himself behind a large hydrangea bush this evening, he was quite invisible to passerby. In fact, the only way he would be spotted was if his Uncle Vernon or Aunt Petunia stuck their heads out of the living room window and looked straight down into the flower bed below. On the whole, Harry thought he was to be congratulated on his idea of hiding here. He was not perhaps very comfortable lying on the hot, hard earth, but on the other hand, no one was glaring at him, grinding their teeth so loudly that he could not hear the news, or shooting nasty questions at him, as had happened every time he had tried sitting down in the living room and watching television with his aunt and uncle. Almost as though this thought had fluttered through the open window, Vernon Dursley, Harry's uncle, suddenly spoke. Glad to see the boy stop trying to butt in. Where is he anyway? I don't know, said Aunt Petunia unconcernedly. Not in the house. Uncle Vernon grunted. Watching the news, he said scathingly. I'd like to know what he's really up to. As if a normal boy cares about what's on the news. Dudley hasn't got a clue what's going on. Doubt he'd know who the Prime Minister is. Anyway, it's not as if there'd be anything about his lot on our news. Vernon, shh, said Aunt Petunia. The window's open. Oh, yes. Sorry, dear. The Dursleys fell silent. Harry listened to a jingle about fruit and bran breakfast cereal while he watched Mrs. Figg, a batty, cat-loving old lady from nearby wisteria, amble slowly past. She was frowning and muttering to herself. Harry was very pleased that he was concealed behind the bush. Mrs. Figg had recently taken to asking him around for tea whenever she met him in the street. She had rounded the corner and vanished from view before Uncle Vernon's voice floated out of the window again. Daughter's out for tea? At the Pulkises, said Aunt Petunia fondly. He's got so many little friends. He's so popular. He repressed He repressed a snort with difficulty. The Dursleys really were astonishingly stupid about their son, Dudley. They had swallowed all his dim-witted lies about having tea with a different member of his gang every night of the summer holiday. Harry knew perfectly well Dudley had not been to tea anywhere. He and his gang spent every evening vandalizing the play park, smoking on street corners, and throwing stones at passing cars and children. Harry had seen them at it during his evening walks around Little Winging. He had spent most of the holiday wandering the streets, scavenging newspapers from bins along the way. The opening notes of the music that heralded the 7 o'clock news reached Harry's ears, and his stomach turned over. Perhaps tonight, after a month of waiting, would be the night. Record numbers of stranded holidaymakers fill airports as the Spanish baggage handlers' strike reaches its second week. Give him a lifelong siesta, I would, snarled Uncle Vernon over the end of the newsreader's sentence. But no matter. Outside the flower bed, Harry's stomach seemed to unclench. If anything had happened, it would have surely been the first item on the news. Death and destruction were more important than stranded holidaymakers. He let out a long, slow breath and stared up at the brilliant blue sky. Every day this summer had been the same. The tensions, expectation, the temporary relief, and then mounting tension again. And always, growing more insistent all the time. The question of why nothing had happened yet. He kept listening, just in case there was some small clue, not recognized for what it really was by Muggles. An unexplained disappearance, perhaps, or some strange accident. But the baggage handler's strike was followed by news on the drought in the southeast. I hope he's listening next door, bellowed Uncle Vernon, with his sprinklers on at 3 a.m. Then a helicopter that had almost crashed into a field in Surrey. Then a famous actress is divorced from her famous husband. As if we're interested in their sordid affairs, sniffed Petunia, who had followed the case obsessively in every magazine she could lay her bony hands on. Harry closed his eyes again, and the now blazing evening sky, as a newsreader said, and finally, Bungie the Budgie has found a novel way of keeping cool this summer. Bungie, who lives at the Five Feathers in Barnsley, has learned to water ski. Mary Dorkins went to find out more. Harry opened his eyes again. If they had reached the water skiing Budgergars, there was nothing else worth hearing. He rolled cautiously onto his front and raised himself onto his knees and elbows, preparing to crawl out from under the window. He had moved about 2 inches when several things happened in very quick succession. A loud echoing crack broke out the sleepy silence like a gunshot. A cat streaked out from under a parked car and flew out of sight. A shriek, a bellow, and the sound of breaking china came from the Dursleys' living room. And as though Harry had been waiting for the scene, though he jumped to his feet, at the same time pulling from the waistband of his jeans a thin wooden wand, as if he were unsheathing a sword before he could draw himself to full height at the top of his head, colliding with the Dursleys' open window, and the resultant crash made Aunt Petunia scream even louder. Harry felt as though his head had been split in two. Eyes streaming, he swayed, trying to focus on the street and spot the source of the noise. But he had barely staggered upright again when 2 large purple hands reached through the open window and closed tightly around his throat. Thank everyone. That's all for today. Bye. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to read page 5. Thank you, everyone. That's all for today. Bye. Peace out.